Hi guys, today we're going to go super deep into understanding how to stretch your hip flexor if you're a runner. Now, there are a few little differences that we need to think about when stretching specifically for a sport. We need to try and tie in as many things around the whole body so that we're not just stretching a specific area, but the brain is understanding all of the other components of the movement that would be going on at the time of stretch. When we're running, our hip flexor is most on stretch when our leg is behind us and our other leg is driving through. So to mimic the other leg driving through, we're going to put it up on a step or a chair, and then we need to start to think about all of the other things that are happening at the time. In walking and running as humans, we use opposite hand and foot to go forwards at the same time. And in running in particular, we should really be thinking about, in a good running technique, thinking about driving that elbow back as our arm goes back. Think about fast elbows. What that does is it stretches and loads the pecs. It creates this diagonal elastic tension through the pec, the core, going through to the opposite hip flexor, that creates this recoil when we go through to the next step. So we're utilising elastic energy to get through to the next step. And we can use this in our stretch as well. So once we've set our foot up onto a step, taking the other foot back a little bit to create a little hip flexor stretch, we're going to drive that elbow back as we push forwards with that front knee. The other things happening in running at the same time should be that we're focusing on the horizon, imagining being really tall, and if you think of the Ethiopians and the Kenyans, they're always lovely tall runners, nice and upright, so eyes forwards, not looking down, head and chest up, thinking about pulling the torso off the pelvis, driving that elbow back, relaxed arms but fast elbow. And these are all things I'm thinking about with trying to get a good running technique. The perfect running technique, if you imagine a snapshot in time of, say, the Ethiopians or the Kenyans, when they're mid-stance, when both feet are off the floor, they've got this lovely bow-like image from their back leg going through the front of their thigh, through their hip flexor, through their core, and that's where the elastic energy and that load through the muscles is coming from before it can contract through to the next step. So in our hip flexor stretch, what I'm feeling is mostly a stretch through here, but we're tying in all of the other components that would be happening in running so that my brain understands that this is a stretch that can be carried forwards into my running. If we compare this to, say, a kneeling hip flexor stretch, which I also do from time to time, the brain, even though I'm stretching my hip flexor in those examples, my brain is not able to transfer it as much into running as it would do with this. So hopefully that helps you runners out there get your hip flexors nice and loose very specifically for your sports.